An Englishman, Irishman, and Scotsman went for a round of golf and their wives went along as their caddies. While walking around the course, the Englishman's wife caught her foot in a rabbit hole, tripped up, and landed in a heap on the ground. Her skirt was over her head, revealing that she wasn't wearing any knickers. The Englishman stormed over and angrily demanded a reason for her state of undress. "Well, darling," she explained, "you give me so little allowance that I have to make the odd sacrifice. Usually no one notices." The Englishman thrusts his hand into his pocket and said, "Here's £10. Go to Marks and Spencer's and get some knickers." 2 holes further along, the Irishman's wife caught her foot on a molehill, tripped up and ended in a heap on the ground. Again her skirt was up over her head, revealing that she wasn't wearing any knickers either. The Irishman was livid and he angrily demanded a reason for her lack of undergarments. "Well, darling," she explained, "you give me so little allowance I cannot afford to buy undergarments." With that, the Irishman thrust his hand into his pocket and said, "Here's £3. Go to Dunn's and get some knickers." 3 holes further on, the Scottish man's wife caught her foot on an exposed root, tripped up and landed with her skirt over her head, revealing that even she wore no knickers. Her explanation to her irate husband was the same as the others. Simply a lack of allowance. The Scottish man thrust his hand into his pocket and said, "Here's a comb. The least you can do is tidy yourself up a bit." An Englishman, an Irishman, a Scotsman, and a Welshman were riding in a hot air balloon. The balloon was about to crash into a mountain, so the pilot says to them, "We need to lose more weight to get clear. One of you has to jump." So the Scotsman says, "I do this for the glory of Scotland." And he jumps out of the basket. But the balloon wasn't high enough yet. "We need to lose more weight," the pilot says. So the Welshman says, "I do this for the glory of Wales," and jumps out of the balloon to his death. "We need to lose the weight of just one more person, and we'll make it," the pilot says. So the Irishman says, "I do this for the glory of old Ireland," and he picks up the Englishman and throws him over the side. An Englishman and an Irishman go to a bakery. The Englishman steals 3 buns and puts them into his pockets and leaves. He says to the Irishman, "That took great skill and guile to steal those buns. The owner didn't even see me." "That's just simple thievery," the Irishman replied. "I'll show you how to do it the honest way and get the same results." The Irishman then proceeded to call out the owner of the bakery and says, "Sir, I want to show you a magic trick." The owner was intrigued, so he came over to see the magic trick. The Irishman asked him for a bun and then he proceeded to eat it. He asked 2 more times, and after eating them again, the owner says, "Okay, my friend, where's the magic trick?" The Irishman then said, "Look in the Englishman's pockets." An Englishman, a Frenchman, and a Russian are in an art gallery. They are looking at a painting of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. "Look at how reserved and calm they are," the Englishman says, "they would definitely be English. They are naked and beautiful, they would have to be French." The Frenchman counters. The Russian speaks up, "No clothes, no shelter, no bed, they have only an apple between them, and they're told this is paradise. They are certainly Russian." An Englishman, an Irishman, and a Scotsman are walking along the beach one day and come across a lantern and a genie pops out of it. "I give you each 1 wish, that's 3 wishes in total," says the genie. The Irishman says, "I am a fisherman, my dad's a fisherman, his dad was a fisherman, and my son will be one too. I wish all the oceans to be full of fish for all eternity and a fleet of fishing boats to catch them." So, with a blink of the genie's eye, the oceans were teeming with fish. The Englishman was amazed, so he said, "I wish for a great wall around England, protecting her," and all the foreigners were gone. With a blink of the genie's eye, there was a huge wall around England and all foreigners disappeared. The Scot asks, "I'm very curious. Please tell me more about this wall." The genie explains, "Well, it's about 150 feet high, 50 feet thick, protecting England so that nothing can get in or out. The Scot says, double the size of it and fill it up with water. An Englishman, a Scottish man, and an Ukrainian man all walk into a pub with their wives. They all sit down and order a cup of tea. The Englishman looks to his wife and says, "Could you pass the honey, honey?" The Scottish man thinks to himself how clever that was, then turns to his wife and says, "Could you pass the sugar, sugar?" The Ukrainian man, not wanting to be outwitted by the other two men, looks over at his wife and says, "Could you pass me the bacon, pig?" An Englishman, an Irishman, a Scotsman, and a Welshman all get caught by the Iraqis. Sounds painful, but the head captor tells them you are all to be shot, but it is tradition and a mark of honor to grant the first 4 prisoners of war whatsoever they wish before they are executed. The Welshman says, "Well then. It'd be bloody magic to hear 100 members of the Welsh male voice choir all singing Land of My Fathers. Smashin'. Yakita, dot." The Scotsman says, "Well, I wanna hunt bagpipers a playin' Flower of Scotland." Then the Irishman says, "Oi think Oi'd like for to see 100 warish dancers all doin' river dance before Oi go." The Englishman says, "My request? Will you shoot me first?" An Englishman's wife goes on vacation. He goes down the pub celebrate with his mates and tells them that she's gone for 7 days to a tropical island. One of his mates asks, "Jamaica?" The man replies, "No, she wanted to go." A Scot and an Englishman walk into a bar. The Englishman orders a large whiskey. The Scot says, "I bet you a quid I can drink your whole whiskey without touching the glass or using a straw." The Englishman is intrigued at how the Scot could possibly do this, so he agrees. The Scot takes the glass and finishes it in one swig. "But, you did touch the glass," exclaims the Englishman. The Scot replies, that I did. Here's your quid, and thanks for the cheap whiskey." An Englishman gets a job at a French restaurant. "Hello and welcome. Before we begin work here,